morning, Corpus Christi, Coastal Bend, and listeners wherever you are across the globe. Welcome on in to another edition of the Sunday Sports Rush. It is episode 119. I am your host, Alex Weister, filling in for James Espinosa, who is enjoying the Angels and Houston Astros series up in Houston. He has had himself a great time. Got to talk to him a little bit before London Game 2 yesterday. But without further ado, I am Alex Weister, joined alongside Adin Ducker.
What's Gucci with it?
And we will be with you until 11 o'clock today, bringing you episode 119 of the Sunday Sports Rush. And we got a nice show coming up. In the first hour, we will talk Finals Game 1 between the Nuggets and the Heat, the 920 news, the NBA news that's going on around the league while the finals is going on, and an MLB rundown. And then in hour 2, we will talk some UIL baseball and softball. We had some very interesting games, as many of you probably have heard about. We have Spurs and Longhorns, NFL headlines, and a sports grab bag to end off the show. Thank you all for joining us this morning. And without further ado, let's talk about Finals Game 1 between the Nuggets and the Heat. The Nuggets took Game 1, 104 to 93. And Nikola Jokic, he got it done again, Aiden.
Yeah, Nikola Jokic. If the Nuggets win this series, he will cement himself as the best player in the league, in my opinion. I think he already is, but just the way he controls the offense.
Yeah.
And for his, wherever you want to say he has defensive limitations in the fourth quarter, when it gets down to crunch time, he calls out he'll call out the defensive play that's being ran by the opposing team, and he'll get set, and he'll be there. He'll be an interior presence when he needs to be. So yeah, man, it's it's looking like I want to see the Heat at least get a game or two.
Yeah,
make this
make it somewhat competitive.
The thing that I mean, if you're a Heat fan, and this is what Lakers fans do, remember the whole game. Remember when they're like, oh, there's some positives we can look to this. We got it figured out now. The Heat shot really badly, right? They
did.
The Nuggets actually shot worse from 3 than the Heat did. So, as much as I like to say the Heat could play better, which I believe they will this series.
Yes.
The Nuggets are in the same boat. They could be playing better, too. I thought the second half, the Nuggets were kind of reeling a bit.
It just doesn't help that Michael Porter Jr. is continuing to just throw up some of the most wild shots I've seen from any player ever. I think he needs to understand that those shots are not his. Those are Jokic's, as he's the one who actually makes those. But let alone, it seems like head coach Michael Malone is just like, you know what? I'm just going to keep letting him do his thing. We're winning. I'm not going to change it. So they continue on their absolutely amazing run through the playoffs. And I want to ask all of the audience out there, head over onto Twitter to Sports Rush 1440. That is Sports Rush 1440 for the question of the day. Who do you have winning the NBA Finals? Nuggets are currently up 1-0, but we saw the Heat Celtics series go 7, so anything can happen. And while you're over there, why not give us some players to watch for the game and who you are most interested in watching? I know for me, it's been throughout the entire playoffs, not just this series. It's been Nikola Jokic. I've loved watching him for years now. He's been absolutely amazing and just does things that completely blows my mind. Now, of course, he was not a one-man army. His battle mate in this series, in Jamal Murray, had himself a nice 26-point performance. He, as we kind of all knew, if he stayed healthy, he was pretty much like the perfect second option there for Jokic. He just plays so perfectly with him.
And I wouldn't say he coasts, but like in the regular season, he doesn't, he doesn't shoot the ball. I mean, he doesn't shoot the ball as much in the regular season as he does in the postseason. That's why he hasn't been an all-star yet. And obviously, he had those. He missed those a year and a half with the injury, which didn't help him out as well. But Jamal Murray, when he's on, he's like a top 10 player in the NBA
Yeah.
when he's on like this.
There's just games like once a series, it seems like, where he will just absolutely take over and he just does not miss. It is just plain and simple. He becomes the most unguardable player on the court just out of nowhere. And you also have to try and manage to guard everybody else who's out there. Aaron Gordon's been having he had a great game one. He was doing everything.
In that first quarter, the Nuggets exploited a mismatch, and credit to Jokic and the coaching staff, where they had Gabe Vincent on Aaron Gordon,
which is
a
complete mismatch.
Aaron Gordon absolutely bullied him.
Yeah.
Like, he bully balled him without the LeBron shoulder dip. You know what I'm saying? You know, a little LeBron shot there. But, like, here's the thing. I don't think that he have a definitive answer to stop the Nuggets.
No, they don't. Bam Adebayo is not going to be enough. It's plain and simple.
You're going to have to the Heat are going to have to find a way to, man, it's easier said than to outscore them. But, yeah, like, there were times where I'm like, man, this Nuggets team is a clinic.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
I fully believe the Heat are going to take one game, and I fully believe they're going to be better games in this series.
Yes, I completely agree. I mean, it seemed like Bam Adebayo was really the only one that was able to be effective in this game. He had 26 points and 13 rebounds, and Gabe Vincent had 19. Haywood Highsmith had 18, but that was garbage time.
Yeah, he was a nice spark that you know. There were times where the Heat looked like they were going to claw back in the game, but you know how the Nuggets are. Like, when the game gets a little tighter, they find ways to score on 3 or 4 straight possessions to get the lead back.
And so an 11-point win for the Nuggets may not look like much, but when there was going into that fourth quarter, it was kind of like, wow, this is getting rough.
An adjustment I would like to see the Heat make, and obviously they should be getting Hero back, which is going to help them.
Yeah,
but against the Bucks, they were playing Kevin Love quite a bit. I feel like inserting him into the lineup.
He's a good veteran presence.
He's a good veteran presence, and although he's not as physically gifted as Aaron Gordon, he has the size to at least stand his own against somebody like that.
If I remember, Kevin Love's like 6'10", 6'11",
so which is
taller than Bam Adebayo.
Yeah, he doesn't have the muscle mass.
He's on the tail end of his career.
Like,
he's kind of
Aaron
just coasting.
Gordon's like a defensive end.
Yeah,
NFL defensive end playing basketball.
Yeah, pretty much. He's huge.
And so that's the adjustment I would like to see the Heat make. I feel like that's gonna also help them. He stretch the floor out a little bit. Aaron Gordon won't be able to pack the.
Yeah,
it won't be able to dominate the paint as much. I mean, he's probably gonna get some looks, but it was just bully ball that whole first half.
And talking about down in the paint, Miami only drew 2 free throws the entire game. That is something that I can't say I've really ever seen, only getting 2 free throws the entire game.
Watching the game, the Miami Heat were taking a lot of threes.
Yes.
And they were taking a lot of mid-range shots, especially from Bam Adebayo. Bam Adebayo rarely went inside the circle. He was hitting a mid-range shot.
Yeah, it felt like they saw they were down, and they were just trying to score as many points as fast as they could to try and cut that lead.
And anytime they did go in the paint, the Nuggets would like either jump vertically up, or they would just kind of let them shoot the layup and whatnot. The Nuggets will let you, you can shoot those twos all you want against the Nuggets. It's the Heat just gonna get that 3-ball going from Caleb Martin, and Max Strus, who
had some interesting posts on Instagram after their win over the Celtics. He posted his on his Instagram post. It was a screenshot of the ESPN article of him getting waived by the Celtics as sort of a, like, I guess an FU to them.
Yeah.
A final FU, even though they took him 7.
And then he reverted back to that same player that got cut by the Celtics.
And did literally nothing.
Yeah, that was...
So I campaigned for him. I was like, okay, cool. Talk your stuff, man. But he just did absolutely nothing game 1.
And Jimmy Butler, since he rolled his ankle against the Knicks, has not been has not been the same player. That player we saw against the Bucks absolutely light them up. That's not there right now.
He also just has a thing for beating the Bucks. I mean, as somebody who's watched them closely, I can attest.
The year the Bucks won the title when they actually had a legit championship team. Remember that? What was his name? Bryn Forbes outscored Jimmy Butler that series.
Bryn Forbes. How can I forget that name?
Yeah. That's an outlier
that's
there.
a
But
deep cut.
Either Jimmy Butler's not 100% or this is usually Jimmy Butler in the regular season that we see. Like, you just never know what you're going to get out of him. And the Heat need aggressive Jimmy Butler.
They do.
They need him now.
An interesting note, the Heat had been 3-0 in all of the openers in this series in the playoffs, but Denver is still unbeaten at home. Game 1 winners in the finals go on to win the title nearly 70% of the time, which bodes well for the Nuggets.
And another thing, too, I mean, it's not like it's helped the Nuggets franchise throughout their history because they haven't won a championship. But when you actually have a legit team that's one of the top 4, top 3 teams in the league, whenever you're on par with the talent level of your competition, I think that elevation is playing a factor now. You know,
I can agree.
It didn't help previously because the Nuggets didn't have good enough teams. You know, but whenever you're on level or even better than that, then the teams that you're playing, that's going to become a factor. I also think Nikola Jokic is going to ball out no matter what because we saw it in Phoenix. You know that game 6, and we saw it against the Lakers games 3 and games 4. So, but I expect the Heat to play better. Quick
thoughts and score prediction for game 2.
I think the Nuggets are. You know what's weird? You know, the first game was kind of like a slug it out, kind of like, you know, there weren't not that many shots being hit. I think this game we're gonna see both teams shoot it well, kind of like the Lakers Nuggets game 1. Yeah, I think both teams are gonna shoot lights out, but I think the Nuggets just are gonna eventually pull away and win in the end. They haven't lost at home.
They haven't.
I don't see them losing game 2. I think the Nuggets are going up 2-0.
I agree completely. I think the Nuggets are well on pace to winning game 2 and winning the NBA Finals. They just look like, and have looked like the entire playoffs, the team to beat. And they're proving it once again here in the biggest stage for the first time in their franchise. And boy, oh boy, can I not be any happier. They are a fantastic team to watch.
I've always said I always like seeing a franchise in any of the major sports win their first title.
Yep. There's nothing like it.
And, you know, James is like the outlier. James, like, he likes seeing the dynasty. He likes seeing sports royalty win. The only team doesn't root for is the Yankees. All the other royalty teams is like he likes seeing them ascend. He likes Lakers. He wanted Lakers Celtics finals. He liked the Brady Pats. You know, I think he even root for the Steelers at times back when they were good. You know.
Yeah, it's
Bama. Duke and all that. So I just love how James is not here and we're taking absolute shots at him.
Hey, this is where we got to take the time, you know. Yeah. That'll wrap up our segment on Finals Game 1. The Nuggets took the 1-0 series lead. Tonight will be Game 2 at 7:30, so stay tuned for that to see if the Nuggets take a 2-0 lead. Coming up next, we have the 9:20 news, so stay tuned. Welcome back to the Sunday Sports Rush. Thank you all for listening on this fantastic Sunday morning on June 4th. We are now in the midst of summer. It is heating up, and man, can I attest to that. It was an absolute scorcher over in Cal Allen during that London series. But once again, thank you all for listening in. If you want to get over onto Twitter and talk about Game 1 of the finals, what were your thoughts? Who do you think is going to win the series? And some players that you have enjoyed watching, head on over to Twitter, SportsRush1440, and just go on to the main show tweet. Just comment, and we'll talk about it here on the show. But without further ado, let's get into the 9:20 news.
There's a lot of news.
And now the news.
It's not the crazy week of news that some of you would come to enjoy, but it is still one that we have. First up in the 920 news, we have a Stanley Cup update, and I know, Aiden, this is something that you will likely know more than I do. It was game one of the Stanley Cup on Saturday yesterday, and the Golden Knights took game one 5-2. Your thoughts on that one, Aiden?
Yes, and the Florida Panthers, in the previous 3 series, they were able to steal game one and set a tone for themselves. But this Golden Knights team, this Golden Knights franchise, they've had consistently good teams every year. They made the Stanley Cup their first year
for their short lifespan
in 2018, but they've always had a good team, and it seems that they can just never get past that final hurdle, or to beat Stanley Cup champion. But I think this is their best shot, and I really think Florida needed to set the tone to win game one. It was a good game for the first 2.5 periods. Both teams went back and forth, but the Vegas Knights they pulled away in the end. That was a really sick goal by Captain Mark Stone. That was one of those, you just got to tip your cap. There's nothing you can really do about that. Shout out to Aiden Hill, who spells his name like me. I tell you, the Aidens have been taking force in sports.
I'll give it to you. I can't deny it. At least within this past stretch of a month or so, it's been the case.
Yeah, you got Aiden Moody, shoving it, against Bernie. We'll talk about that later in the next hour. Even Aiden of Santa Cruz Academy pitched well, in that game. What's his last name again?
Aiden Ruiz.
Aiden Ruiz, yeah. So, did you see that save that Aiden Hill made?
I did not. I didn't get a chance to watch it as I was out last night with Emily and didn't really get to watch Stanley Cup. I don't really get a chance to watch it ever.
He had to slide to his left, assuming a shot was going to be shot that side of the net.
Yeah.
The puck makes it to the other side of the net, and he has a stick out. His stick barely.
Ooh.
It was just one of the sickest saves I've ever seen. His stick barely hits the puck and deflects it, out of the goal. And you need plays like that to win a Stanley Cup. And win or lose, one team's gonna win their first Stanley Cup, and that's I'm rooting for
which
the
is
Panthers.
what you love to see. A matchup Panthers, where though? Two teams are going for their first championship. That's something that you like to see, because since we're so long in sports history now, you don't really get to see anything like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Next up, we have Shannon Sharp is reached a buyout with FS1 and is leaving undisputed. Not Uncle Shannon, no.
You're done. You are done.
Oh, painful. Why does he have to be the one to leave? Why can't they get rid of Skip?
Skip. For all I know, Skip's like the showrunner of that show, basically.
Sadly.
And
which is
that's Skip's baby.
Yeah, I don't know where the show's gonna go. I'm
assuming they're gonna find somebody to challenge Skip.
But
and that final year, you kind of saw the writing on the wall.
They were really going at each other,
especially with the whole I remember they were talking about Tom Brady and Skip was kept saying that Shannon Sharp was a bum compared to Tom Brady, which they're both Hall of Fame players.
Yeah,
it's not like Shannon Sharp was his bench warmer.
No, Shannon Sharp's
a three-time Super Bowl champion,
top 5, top 3 tight end of all time.
Besides Gronk and Kelsey, another clutch postseason tight end.
Yeah,
that you needed a first down, throw it to Shannon.
Different era, different position. It's kind of there's nothing to be made there.
But Stephen A. Smith is recruiting him. That's the rumor.
Ooh.
That it'll be Stephen A. against Shannon.
That'd do well for ratings for them.
So
can't lie.
Somebody to see. Oh God, I don't like Skip Bayless. I'm not gonna say hate because hate's a strong word, but Skip Bayless is, man.
And so we do have one very interesting, very weird note. It comes from Twitter, Josh Hart going on Twitter and asking fan bases, players, if they have ever drank their wife's breast milk.
Gosh. I mean, this is like WTF. I should have the WTF sounder on, but
and this is
equally weird.
This is quote exactly what he wrote on Twitter. Have y'all ever tasted y'all's significant other's breast milk asking for a friend? I mean, yeah, I don't really know how to process that one.
He's literally Homelander.
He really is.
For those, hopefully, we have one listener that knows about the show The Boys that gets that reference. But yeah, man, there's some things that you just need to. I mean, you have a right to let out what personal stuff, you know. That's his right, but like,
yeah,
a logical sense, you know, sensible human being would not put that out in public.
And of course, many people had their takes on it, notably De'Aaron Fox and CJ McCollum had their takes, but it was his teammate in Jalen Brunson that had probably the funniest and most interesting conversation with him, telling him to lose his number after he saw the tweet and then taking a screenshot of the comment section of him replying to some people and said, "Nice knowing you. Make sure you help on the way." So Jalen Brunson just poking fun at his teammate there. Don't actually think that there's any sort of bad blood between Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart. He's an interesting personality.
Yeah.
Jalen Brunson's an interesting personality. New York Knicks had a great year for them. They're making strides within that. Jalen Brunson, of course, becoming a little bit better of a player than I personally expected.
If the Knicks take a step back, if the Knicks regress next season, this is going to be the reason why.
And that is absolutely a fair take. This is one of those landmark moments in social media where this could mark the downfall of the New York Knicks.
Exactly.
So keep an eye out for that. That's going to do it for the 920 news. Coming up, we will talk about some more NBA news, so stay tuned for that. This is the Sunday Sports Rush. Welcome back to the Sunday Sports Rush on News Talk KEYS 1440 AM and 98.7 FM. Thank you all for listening. We're halfway through hour one, and thank you all once again for tuning in. If you want to get in on the discussion about Game 1, Nuggets versus Heat, Nuggets taking Game 1, with some predictions on who you got winning the series, head on over to Twitter at SportsRush1440, or just add us in the tweet, and we will reply, get back to you, and talk about it here on the show. But without further ado, let's get into some NBA news. We are now in the cycle where coaches are getting picked up after getting fired, some new coaches coming in, some old ones getting cycled around, and we have had an interesting cycle. Monty Williams, of course, is probably the hottest name that went into the market coming into this. Of course, the previous head coach of the Suns got fired after their playoff run ended. He got picked up by the Detroit Pistons on a 6-year, $78.5 million deal.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's a better coach than Dwayne Casey, I guess.
Yeah. Dwayne Casey, he's always sort of been one of those like stopgap sort of coaches who comes in. He'll give you solid production. I always sort of remember him as a coach who'd come in on the Pistons and win them 40 games a year. They'd be sort of fringe playoff, sort of middle of nowhere like the Charlotte Hornets used to be for a while.
I mean, that's their ceiling right now, you know. I mean,
40 wins, I think, is high for a ceiling for them right now.
Okay, I was being generous. I was being friendly.
I'm just being honest. It's not like they're just a veteran bad team. They're young. They're a very young team. They have some strides to make. They're not a young OKC team who's shown that they can still play. But
I mean, Cade Cunningham already has a major injury on his record.
Yeah,
and it just doesn't. I just don't see any growth in their future, short term at least. So.
I think it's a good move for the Pistons to bring in I don't think it's even really a debate, an upgrade at the coaching position. I think the contract's a little hefty and a little long. I don't think they necessarily needed him to come on for that long and that much money. I mean, is he really going to be the coach for that long? I can't really see that. I think it's a good move nonetheless. They needed an upgrade at the coaching position to try and coach up these young players. It's going to be an interesting job for Coach Monty Williams, but I think it's one that he'll be up for the task. The 76ers, of course, Doc Rivers, once again, could not take a team far in the playoffs, and they blew it again.
We already talked about that, but yeah, just typical Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers in closeout and elimination games is like, that's the coach you want to go up against if you're an NBA coach.
Yeah, really. It's absolutely true.
But
nonetheless, the 76ers hired Nick Nurse, the former coach of the Toronto Raptors, which, in all honesty, I'm very surprised they let him go. I don't think that he was the issue in Toronto. I really don't. I think it was just the case of a roster that is very much missing Kyle Lowry and Kawhi Leonard, in all honesty.
Yeah, Kyle. Yeah, Fred VanVleet. He had that one year he was an All-Star, but he just. I know he was banged up here and there, but he hasn't.
He's not suited for even the second man role. Not the first, not the second. He's great as a third or fourth option.
Scotty Barnes was supposed to improve. He hasn't. I mean, he had a good rookie season, but
he has not developed like we thought he would.
Yeah, he hasn't.
Not yet, at least.
He hasn't made a steady improvement. He's still a nice player. Siakam, you never know what you're going to get out of Siakam. He's still a very good player, but he's like a Jimmy Butler power forward. You just never know what you're going to get out of him offensively.
And so this move for the Sixers, I really like, because coming into a team that is established, they have an MVP on their roster, which I don't think he should have won, but that's not here nor there. So it's a roster that's very good if they can keep it together. Of course, James Harden might be gone. It's up in the air.
That roster definitely needs to find a strong point guard.
Yes.
I mean,
which James Harden was and can be again if he stays.
I doubt he's going to say they just need to find a point guard that's not, James Harden. Whenever James Harden plays point guard, he's actually a good point guard, but he gets to. Like, he has a couple of games where he drops 40, right? And then he starts shooting the ball too much.
Yeah.
Him and Tyrese Maxey in that game 6 basically took the ball out of Embiid's hands.
Yep.
And that did him in. And so they need a point guard that's going to be like, okay, Embiid's MVP. He needs to. I got to get him his touches. I got to, find ways to get him open and whatnot. So I think that's what the Sixers are missing. Nick Nurse, he first press conference, he got a full dose of Philadelphia media.
I mean, it's gonna happen. It's just how it is.
That reporter, and he was persistent. He was like, "Do you want James Harden back? Do you want James Harden back?" That's not answer my question. I'm like, geez,
I just got here, bro. What do you mean? Let me see what the roster's like. Can you not? Regardless, I think this is great. We saw what Nick Nurse can do coaching up a team that has some great depth, a great roster, and the Toronto Raptors. He won them their first ever championship.
Yeah.
So I think he can work wonders with this team. Frank Vogel is now the new head coach of the Suns, and this is a move that I am not a big fan of. I have never been high on Frank Vogel.
I gotta disagree with you.
I can understand he's been on some great teams. He's coached up teams that have had good records, but to be honest, I can't really explain it. I've just never been high on Frank Vogel.
I honestly think he whenever he coaches, he's one of the better coaches in the league. And even Lakers fans would say that he was actually a good coach for them. It's just that
he's stable.
That last year's roster was a complete mess for the Lakers, and I don't even think Greg Popovich or Phil Jackson could have made wonders with that roster they had last season.
He's a stable coach. I'll give him that. He is one that can come in and stabilize a franchise.
You have KD and Devin Booker. Now, we don't know what's going to happen with Chris Paul, but Frank Vogel is a defensive-minded coach.
Yes, that is one thing that's for sure.
If you have the right veteran players to buy in, that Suns team, if they can work it out on the defensive end, they could be a force. I mean, they took the Nuggets to 6 games.
Yeah.
But the Nuggets, the last 2 games kind of just, they pulled away from the series. But they could be a significant challenger in the Western Conference if they find the right veteran players. Because let's be honest, it was just, it was basically KD and Devin Booker by themselves against the Nuggets. So you find the right veteran players around. Get DeAndre Ayton. Okay, you're not going to be the third leading scorer. Put all your energy on the defensive end, DeAndre
Yes.
Ayton. And I think Frank Vogel would be that perfect coach for him to focus squarely on defensive end. Because Ayton, he has the talent to be a defensive force.
Absolutely. We saw glimpses of it, and it was sort of one of his highlights coming out of Arizona was his defensive capabilities. So I think they need to hone in on it more.
2021 playoffs, he was a force defensively until Giannis. Ever since that finals with Giannis, he just hasn't. Ayton hasn't had the same motor. It's like, you remember that block that Giannis had on him? It just.
Yep.
I feel like Frank Vogel's the right coach to get that out of DeAndre Ayton, and I feel like because he was number 1 overall pick, and I've always rooted for the guy. I want to see him succeed, and he doesn't. You don't want to ask you to be Joel Embiid or Giannis or Nikola Jokic, but be a defensive force.
Be an Evan Mobley.
Yeah, exactly.
Evan Mobley doesn't score the most, but if they need him to, he can.
I mean, but
he's amazing defensively.
I mean, be like a Rudy Gobert. You don't have to. We're not asking DeAndre Ayton to score over 28 games. Just give a solid 14, 15, 15 and 10. Solid defense.
Because you don't need to score with that roster. KD, Devin Booker, I mean, those are 2 of the best scorers in the league. And KD is arguably one of the greatest scorers of all time. So, I mean, you don't need to score with that roster. There's plenty of other guys that can do that. And in probably the biggest headline from this cycle was Bob Myers stepping down as the president and general manager of the Golden State Warriors. Now, a lot of people overreacted with this. Do you think this is the beginning of the end of the Warriors dynasty, Aiden?
I mean, I'm not one to I'm not one to say that, okay, the dynasty's done, because the Patriots, I used to always say, there was years where I thought they were done, and then they win the Super Bowl next year.
Yeah.
And so, as long as Steph Curry's on that team,
bingo.
I mean, they'll still have a shot.
Yep.
Obviously, they have to. There's things they should improve upon, but the Warriors are going to be. They're going to be at least in the second round.
Oh yeah.
For the next several seasons, as long as Steph Curry's there. So
I agree completely.
I mean, I don't know where Bob Myers is gonna go, but
I mean, I don't know if it'll be a front office role anywhere else. Maybe he is just looking to just sort of be around the team or just fade away and just keep an eye on them from afar. But I completely agree with what you said. I think this team goes as Stephen Curry goes.
I mean,
and we've seen that can go pretty far.
I mean, Bob Myers is a really good executive, but I don't think he's the sole I don't think he's the heartbeat of the Warriors dynasty. I mean, he did his role. Just like Steve Kerr, he has to coach them up on the floor, just like the players do. So it is a piece that's missing to the puzzle that orchestrated this, but it's not like, oh, Bob Myers, their GM is gone, they're going to completely fall down to earth. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, it from everything that I'm seeing, it really does seem like Bob Myers is stepping away and not doing anything in the NBA as of right now.
Yeah.
He talked and said that it was pretty much just time for him, and he said he's unsure of his future and professional pathways, and said someday he may decide to return to the team side. And if that's the case, I mean, he should be one of the most sought-after front office members in the entire league, and rightfully so.
Yeah, exactly. And sorry, when I think about the Warriors and is the dynasty ending, James.
Yeah.
James was like, LeBron James, dynasty killer.
Yeah, you're right on that. It does ring bells of that. And in a news note that many thought would have happened but did not, Coach Mazzulla of the Celtics will be staying as the head coach of the Celtics. And I mean, I don't know if that's the correct move.
Had they got swept in that series, I think he was gone.
I agree.
And
I completely agree.
Those three games, that 3-game stretch, I think saved his job in Boston. So, there's always Doc Rivers. The Raptors still haven't hired their head coach, right?
I don't think so.
So that's the only one still left.
Now, an interesting question that I want to pose: do you think Brad Stevens could have won this team a championship?
Ime Udoka was the best coach for the Celtics. That one year
agree.
he was with them.
I agree. Sadly,
it just took a Steph Curry. It just took a amazing Steph Curry shooting performance in Game 4.
And that's the thing.
Win.
These teams go into the finals and they lose, but they don't realize who they're losing to. Stephen Curry is a generational defying talent. He has shaped and molded the next generation of kids coming up. When you go to basketball courts now, everybody is shooting 3-pointers, and that is in large part because of Stephen Curry.
I was honestly, when the Ime Udoka got let go, I was shocked that Brad Stevens didn't step in himself for like a season to coach.
I kind of was as well.
Because that's what Pat Riley did.
Yes.
Because the Heat were struggling, he fired Stan Van Gundy, and Pat Riley stepped in and helped coach the Heat to a championship in 2006. So I was thinking something similar with that was going to happen there. They're going to lose a few assistants to Ime Udoka in Houston. So, the Celtics, they're just going to go wherever their two stars take them. Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So
that'll wrap up our NBA news headlines. Coming up next, we will talk about the MLB, and in a segment that we tend to like to do for every sport around basketball, football, baseball, we will be talking about contenders and pretenders. So stay tuned for that after the break. Welcome back to the Sunday Sports Rush on Newstalk KUIS 1440 AM and 98.7 FM. We are winding down hour one, and pretty soon we will be talking about the contenders and pretenders for the MLB. Thank you all for listening, and if you want to get in, you can at Adin Ducker on Twitter, or at me at Alex Weister, or Sports Rush 1440 if you want to talk about anything that we have talked about and get in on the show. Finals Game 1, some NBA news around the coaching circle, who you think some of the teams should hire, who you think is the biggest snub in the coaching circle, or if you just want to have a chat, head on over to Twitter and at one of us, and we will talk about it here on the show. Without further ado, let's get into some MLB contenders and pretenders, but I do want to talk about one major thing before we can get into that, and it is Liam Hendriks. As somebody who has been around it, not personally been through it, but with my father, I've seen the worst of the worst when it comes to cancer. So a massive shout out to the White Sox reliever, Liam Hendriks, for making his return after winning the battle against cancer.
Yeah,
Huge claps for Liam Hendriks.
And I think he had stage 3. I think he had stage 3 as well, which is like one of the more severe stages of cancer. So.
Yes, there is, if I remember correctly, 4 stages. And so that is really severe. And so it's amazing to see an athlete be able to make a comeback after something like that. And so once again, massive shout out to Liam Hendriks. He is an absolute dog. And now.
Yeah, well, basically, he kicked cancer in the butt, man.
Oh, yeah.
That was your best shot. You lost.
I like it.
And now let's get into some contenders and pretenders. Of course, we got to talk about the local teams, the Rangers and the Astros, but I think these are pretty easy ones. I will start off with both of these. I'll say they both are contenders.
Yes. Of course, you're going to have to say Astros are contenders. They've been
easily,
in the
yes.
ALCS 6 straight seasons, and they're the defending champion, so you got to say that they're a contender.
It's a bit more up in the air for the Rangers. Now, don't get me wrong. They have absolutely shown it so far throughout this regular season.
Their bats they've been mowing teams, man.
Yes. And on that note, the Rangers have outscored their opponents by 143 runs in 57 games this year. That's the best run differential by any MLB team through 57 games since the 1939 Yankees. That is a long time.
And the only, I mean, I probably would have had maybe contenders anyway, but the only reason why I'm giving a definitive answer on this is because their manager has done it 3 times.
Yes.
And so he's a 3-time World Series champ with the Giants, and he actually managed the Padres back in the late 90s to another World Series. So, yeah, man, and, you know, the Astros are finally winning games now. They started off slow, and they've been red hot, but the Rangers are also been hot too. They're still, I think the Rangers still have a 2 or 3 game lead still.
Yes.
It's been like that for the past 2 weeks because the Rangers haven't been losing. So, yeah, they're going to be, I think the Rangers are going to, what the Mariners were last season, the Rangers are this year.
I think that's a good comp.
And the Rangers are going to be around in the division race for, I think, until August or September. One of these teams is going to pull away finally, but I would assume the Astros, you have to favor the Astros as far as winning the division. But the Rangers are going to, the Rangers are contenders in my eyes just because of their manager. So, yeah. And Marcos, if you're listening, giving credit, we're actually giving props to your Rangers. So.
And I would go around and talk about all of the leading division leaders currently, but I'm not going to talk about the Braves. I think the Braves are self-explanatory.
Yeah.
So I'm going to lead off with the Rays, who are 41-19 and lead their division. Are they a contender or pretender?
They did make the World Series in the bubble year in 2020. I'm going to say they are a contender just because they have beaten the Astros before in the playoffs. And their bats are absolutely raking too. Now their pitching's gotten injured the past few weeks, and that's a little concern.
It's sort of been a concern for them for the past couple of years, it seems.
Yeah, and so, but I definitely say that they're a contender.
I would agree with that. And now another division leader that I know we have harped on multiple times in our group chat, it is the Minnesota Twins. Contender or pretender?
I don't even think the Twins are going to win that division. I think the Guardians are going to win it.
Finally wake up and get out of their third place slump that they're currently in?
Because last season, the Guardians were in the same boat. It was the Twins leading for the first few months, and then the Guardians in August and September got red hot. And the Guardians actually became a legit, they pushed the Yankees to a 5 games of the divisional series.
Yeah.
And, I do think the Guardians are going to win it. Now, contender, probably not.
I would have to agree. I don't think they're a contender. It's tough coming out of the AL, especially, and the fact that they're in such a weak division and they just can't seem to pull away no matter what they do. It doesn't bode well.
Now, on the fringe of contender and pretender are the Yankees, just because they made it to the ALCS in 3 of the last 6 seasons. So,
I would probably put the depending on who you ask, the
Orioles?
Angels on that fringe.
Nah, not the Angels. No.
It's up in the air.
No, they're about to be 500 team now.
They are a 500 team.
Oh, they are
exactly 30 and 30.
Not. Their bullpen's still a mess, and yeah.
But I do have on here the Orioles, who you were going to get into.
So the Orioles, they're a nice club.
They're second in their division. They're 36-22.
We haven't seen them in the postseason yet, and I mean we haven't really seen this Rangers team also. But the Rangers at least have the manager that's been there. But
they have the managerial experience, unlike the Orioles, and they're very young. They're very young.
The Orioles on their friends have to wait and see. No.
I would agree. It's a young team. If they can make the playoffs, I think that's great. It's going to make strides for them, but I don't think it's going to be their year even next year, but maybe the year after once they develop some more talent. I think this team could be a team to watch. I really do.
Now the NL.
Oh boy. Let's talk about an interesting team that I saw who is technically tied for the lead in their division in the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Yes,
they're tied with the Dodgers at 35-24.
The Diamondbacks have always been like, one year they have a good playoff team, the next year they're garbage, and then there's you never know which Diamondbacks team you're gonna get. I think the Padres have been very disappointing.
Yes, they're in fourth at 27-31.
Same with the Mets. They've been disappointing. And the Phillies, they haven't been.
I think most disappointing of all has probably been St. Louis.
Oh, well, when Yadi and Molina retired and their whole pitching staff fell apart.
Yes, that is very true.
And he's going to be the Hall of Fame as a catcher.
Oh, yeah,
so
no doubt.
I think in the NL, as it looks right now, we're probably going to see another Braves-Dodgers NLCS. We didn't see it last year because the Braves-Dodgers lost early, but
Brewers are leading their division, but
that Central is the same thing as the ALs.
Yep.
It's just mid. So
I
think,
sadly have to agree.
I think we're going to see, just like in 2020 and 2021, I think we're going to see a Braves-Dodgers NLCS.
I expect San Diego to be pesky. I expect them to make another run. They're loaded roster. I expect them to wake up later on in the season. That'll do it for our MLB contenders and pretenders. Another big shout out to Liam Hendricks for whooping cancer and making his way back to the mound. We are broadcasting live from the American Arms Studio. Big city selections, small town prices. This is KUIS Corpus Christi. Hour 2 coming up. Stick around. Good morning and welcome back to Hour 2 of the Sunday Sports Rush. It is episode 119, and thank you all for listening in on this beautiful Sunday morning. I am Alex Weister, filling in for James Espinosa, who is enjoying himself up in Houston after watching a beautiful series between the Angels and Astros, where the Astros brought out the broom, sweeping them 3-0. Just a quick note, shout out the Astros. I am Alex Weister. He is Adin Ducker behind the glass producing.
Cougars, I love Cougars.
And thank you all for listening in. We had a stacked hour 1 with talking about finals game 1, some predictions for game 2, the 920 news, NBA news, and an MLB rundown with some contenders and pretenders. But now coming up in hour 2, leading off, we'll be talking about some UIL baseball and softball, some Spurs and Longhorns, NFL headlines, and then end it off with a sports grab bag. And now, without further ado, the moment I personally have absolutely been waiting to talk about, it is UIL baseball and softball. And man, what a weekend it was. This has probably been the most chaotic and interesting weekend of baseball that I have ever seen in the high school playoffs. First off, let's talk about London versus Santa Gertrudis. I got to cover that series with Doug Kesterson. It was 2 games as London swept them 2-0 at Cal Allen. It was a great series by London. They are a great team. They're on their way to their 3rd straight state appearance. Absolutely amazing run from London. They're an amazing team, and they just backed it up even further with their performance in this series against Santa Gertrudis Academy.
Yeah.
Beating a team by a total of 12-0 through 2 games. I mean, it's impressive this late into the playoffs. And so they move on, and they will be facing Wall in the first round matchup in the state semifinals.
Yeah,
that will be at 12 p.m. in Del Diamond.
Yeah, let's hope they run through that wall. You know,
I mean,
that was bad.
I'll give it to you
Okay.
because this is a team that absolutely smashed Brock. And for those who are around the high school baseball scene, Brock's a team that has seen London many times before I even came around. And Brock is a very tough team.
Yeah,
and Wall run-ruled them 11-0 in game 2. This isn't a Santa Gertrudis Academy team who's great, but they weren't ranked. This is a Brock team that has made it to the States and has put up a fight against the best of the best. To get run-ruled, that's crazy to me.
I believe London did beat them in the semifinal 2 years ago, and
Yes.
then London obviously beat them in the final
Yes.
last year. That crazy game. Remember, just back and forth.
It was 16-13, the final score.
Run score. And I just came up with this morning, Alex, but I feel like London and Sinton traded places from last season, where last year London,
I agree.
Last year London had to grind it out, and they had several close series that could have gone either way. and then Sinton was very dominant last season. This year, London's been the team that's been mowing through with
You are
like
absolutely on point with that.
giving teams no life.
Yes.
And then Sinton has had to grind it out, this postseason and so forth. And it's nice to see both teams experience,
Yep.
both sides of that coin, but still win.
Sinton has been pitching their aces in game 1. London came into this series. They pitched a kid with 16 total innings pitched on the season as their game 1 starter. I don't think he's pitched more than maybe 3 innings in a game his entire season, and he pitched a whole 5 and didn't allow a run. That is how insane this lineup is. And then they come into game 2 with their incredible ace, who's committed to Texas A&M, by the way, and just absolutely slam the door shut. This is a amazing team.
Yes, and I mean, we'll talk about the Sitton's,
I do want to give, before we get into Sin, that's probably going to take up the majority of the rest of this, because there's so much to go into.
I mean, I haven't seen these other 3 teams that are in the state with London.
Yes.
I don't even think they were in the state tournament last season.
Boyd is a team that I have not seen in there, but they're 38-5, so they're very good.
Wall obviously hasn't been there because they're in the place of Brock.
Yes,
which we've seen. So,
and then the final one who's facing off against Boyd is Maypearl, who I can't say I've ever heard of.
So, I mean, these teams I haven't seen before, so I can't really count them out. But obviously, London has to. We expect London to win state again. And
funny enough, London has the 3rd worst record out of all the teams in the state semifinals. They're 32-3. Wall is 34-6, and Boyd is 38-5. So they have a lot more games under their belt, but they don't have the championship experience that London has.
Yeah, exactly.
London went through absolute heartbreak 2 years ago and then came back and went through an absolute war to win states last year. They have that championship experience under their belt, and I'm confident. Now, I'm not going to say for sure that they will win states, but it looks like they definitely can do it.
Yeah. And now,
let's give a big shout out to Cal Allen softball for winning the state champions in 4A softball. They overcame their demons as well. A team that beat them 2 years ago in Liberty. They beat them this year in a final score of 9-7 to win their first ever state championship. They
were also champions last year, so this is a 2-time defending champ.
That's impressive.
And potentially 3-time, because in the 2020 year before COVID, this Liberty team was raking people until the pandemic started. So a multi-champion that Callan could easily, and Callan was down 3-0.
Yeah.
After the first half inning, and I was all like, oh man, it's gonna happen again. This Liberty team's gonna cement a dynasty and win their 3rd straight. But Callan rallied.
They flipped the script.
Callan rallied in those middle innings. They're back-to-back four-run innings by
And what's
Callan.
most impressive to me is I heard from around a lot of different people that this team is loaded with a lot of freshmen. And the fact that they are able to come in to the state championship game against a team that has been utterly dominant with a group of freshmen and beat them. After overcoming a deficit, I'm expecting this Cal Allen team to do big and great things in the next few years.
I expect them to at least be back at state one,
Yes.
at least one more time,
Yes.
in the next few seasons and whatnot. And Liberty, they tried to mount a comeback. They got really intense there the last couple innings.
It was 2 runs in the 6th and 2 runs in the 7th that made it a 2-run lead for Cal Allen. But
Cal held on. They held on, and they're coming back with that trophy, their first ever in their softball program history. So we've had a couple close calls with teams. Gregory Portland back in I think 2015 or 16, they almost won state, and then we also had Santa Gertrudis in this year's state final. They lost 4-1.
Yeah,
but they really showed out.
Yeah,
and they could be around as well for 3A.
I agree. It's Coastal Bend baseball and softball is in fantastic hands, and it's just showing once again why this is the place to be for high school baseball and softball. But now it's time to get controversial.
Oh,
Sinton versus Bernie in the 4A Region 4 regional finals at Whataburger Field. Game 1 went off without a hitch. Sinton won game 1. It was a close one. Great game from all that I saw. Did not get to see it.
Oh, so I'll let you know. It was a pitcher's duel.
Yes.
You know, between Stewart and whoever was I forgot his name, but whoever it was.
Jaquay Stewart for Sinton. He's phenomenal. And they win game 1.
But Sinton was down 2-1 entering the final inning. And Bernie let up 3 pass balls, which got Sinton runners on base. And then I believe it was either McCoy or Moody that had the game win RBI to give them the lead. But a clutch hit, but most of that was on basically unforced errors by Bernie, which basically, I mean, I don't like to say, you know, give credit for Sinton to be resilient in that situation, but when you let up 3 pass balls to the number 1 ranked team, you're not going to win.
Yeah, it's plain and simple.
They basically helped Sinton win that game.
But game 2. We got to talk about it. It was, to put it bluntly, the show of all shows.
This was...
It was the worst officiated game that I have ever heard, have ever seen. I didn't get to see the game live, but while a streaming group has taken down game 2, there is other ways to find it, and I'm not going to go around and say these things because I don't feel like I need to, but there is ways to watch game 2, and you can find it on your own volition. But the ejections that happened, there were 5 in total.
5 in total.
4 of them were on Sinton. 2 players, 2 coaches. And let's just say they were bogus.
Yes. So, I believe this is the 4th inning. Jaquay Stewart hits the liner to short. Now, it's a soft liner.
Yes.
The ball, and you can see it. There's that Sinton fan that's always at every Sinton game that takes really good video.
Yes, he is. His name on Twitter is, I believe, For a Sinton Fan in Arlington.
Okay,
I believe that's his name.
He lives in
Does
in Arlington.
phenomenal work. Travels the team everywhere. Love his work. Great guy.
And so on the play, you could barely see it, which I could slightly understand why they missed the call. But
yes,
they missed the call. The ball barely bounces on the ground. You can see a little bit of dirt kick up, but the shortstop traps it. He sold it well though.
Yeah,
because he knew the umps called it out right there and then whenever he trapped it, and so he throws it to third, which picks off the runner at third. Jaquay Stewart's confused. He's running to second, and there's a lot of commotion.
He gets to second. They go and start talking to the umps.
I assume him and Alanis in the video are arguing or you know, and they have a right to. They have to, you know, they have a right to say, you know, you missed the call, ump and whatnot.
Nothing happened with that. They just let it go like great coaches do, and they just went to the next half inning. And so Jaquay goes into the dugout. He gets ready to go take his position, and as he's walking out on the field, he walks in between the 2 umpires who are off to the side talking to the coaches, does not look at either one of them, but must have said something, and on the spot, without hesitation, not giving him a warning, not giving him anything, the ump ejects him.
But Alanis right away was very, very animated about it to the ump, so it must have been something minuscule or nothing at all, because if you're a coach, and a lot of coaches will if a player really says something bad, they're not going to argue with the umpire about it.
And this is a
so
team...
for Alanis to argue with the umpire right away when he got ejected, something tells me it was basically minuscule.
Because he has been to the top. He's won. He's been away. Come back to Sinton. They've been everywhere. They know what it takes to win a championship, and arguing calls nonstop is not going to do that. They know what it takes to win. These are ejections that are for nothing. Yeah. But let's get to the second ejection with Blake Mitchell.
So this is the bottom of the 7th, and bases are loaded, and a wild pitch is made, and so now it's 5-3 with 2 outs. So because of the wild pitch, first base is open, and they're not going to challenge. They're not going to pitch to Blake Mitchell, the best player on Sinton's team, and so they intentionally walk him from that point. Blake Mitchell throws the bat, and now it goes pretty high in the air. However, this ain't a high school baseball field. This is a minor league field, so the dugout's way far back.
Yep.
So he tosses it high in the air. But
it was high. Don't get us wrong. It was high. It was probably the highest flip I've seen. It was
towards Sinton's dugout, and it landed in a safe area. It looked nonchalant.
And he didn't mouth off to the refs. in the slightest. At least that I saw. He did not say anything to the refs.
And it just looked normal. Nothing should have happened.
But
there was no
as
problem.
He's going over to first, he gets ejected, and that is when stuff really hit the fan. Sinton coaches, after that, just got absolutely livid.
Yeah, Sinton's first base coach, and I believe it wasn't Alan East, but there was another coach in Sinton's dugout.
Yeah.
So Sinton's first, and shout out to Sinton's first base coach for having your players back there in that situation.
Massive props.
Because he probably said some stuff that probably warranted his ejection to that umpire, because he went at him.
He was ready to fight.
He was ready,
plain and simple. He was ready to fight.
So maybe that ejection was, maybe that was, justified.
It was the breaking point.
But still, like, there wouldn't even been that situation in the first place. You already ejected Jaquay Stewart for something small, right?
And called 3 balks on Braden Brown in the first inning.
That's what started it off, was the 3 balk.
And Braden Brown is no slouch. If you've seen him pitch, the man is an absolute dog. He is a phenomenal pitcher, just like 5 others in that Sinton rotation.
So the Sinton coaches are rightfully, they're ticked about this.
Yeah.
And, the coach, whatever the coaches said to the umps, if it was bad language or something like that, or too aggressive, they get ejected. That's fine, but that would have never happened had you. Why did you?
It's a domino effect.
Why would you eject Blake Mitchell for that?
Yeah,
so Sinton is without their 2 best players, and they wind up losing that game.
But let's not just say that they lost. They battled back and took it to extras.
Oh yeah.
But now keep in mind, if they were to win that game, they would have been without Jaquay Stewart and Blake Mitchell plus 2 coaches for their state semifinal game.
So it was.
And looking at their state semifinal game, they're facing China Spring.
I mean, we could talk to Alan East and we could ask him. He probably would respond like, we would still like to win game 2 no matter what.
Yes.
Because he's just, a coach will never like to say he would like to lose a game, right?
Correct.
But this was a blessing in disguise that they lost game 2.
And they come into game 3,
man,
and they absolutely took it to those umpires and that other team and blew the doors off of Bernie 9-0. It was not even close.
Aiden Moody, do they give out regional MVPs?
I don't believe so. But if they did,
Moody
he would have.
Was the guy. He absolutely
6
dominated.
2/3 shutout innings.
In the first inning, a couple of Bernie batters did go on base, so it could have gotten away with him really quick. But ever since he got out of that first inning, he was absolutely dominant.
He heated up very quickly, and let's just say they shut the door on that series.
Basically,
And
didn't
they're
even
back
make
to
the
states.
umps a factor.
Nope.
And credit, Braden Brown and actually it was Caden McCoy and Aiden Moody. They had back-to-back RBI singles with 2 outs in the first inning, and from there on, even the guys that came in for Jaquay Stewart and Blake Mitchell, they had a couple of walks themselves. They put the ball in play. This was absolutely one of the more impressive wins against a really good Bernie team. This Bernie team was no slouch.
Yeah. No, they were not. It's a Bernie team that was, I guess you could put it was Sinton, Cal Allen, Bernie last year that were sort of the 1A, B, and C. Whoever was to come out of that region was going to win states. It was pretty much plain and simple. It was whoever came out of that was going to prove that they were the best, and that's what happened. Sinton, Cal Allen in Whataburger Field for the region final. It was the state finals. It really was. That's what the vibes were, and Sinton ended up winning states. But
another thing too is that, Sinton, much credit to them for bouncing back. One of the more impressive wins. But there was quite a bit of coaches, baseball coaches that were in the stands watching. You had Lee Yeager and then former Sinton coach Gene Casper.
And then of course media everywhere.
They said they've never seen anything like that. It was like a major league. It was like MLB kind of umps that was happening. It was just making the game about themselves and whatnot. Jaquay Stewart and Blake Mitchell, these are their last games, potentially, if they lose the series.
And we're talking about Blake Mitchell, who is an LSU commit, a top 10 MLB prospect. This kid knows what's on the line. He has been here. He's done this. He knows how good he is. He's not going to jeopardize something like that.
I don't think we'll see this crew. This crew shouldn't officiate in this same crew in the postseason ever again.
No.
Now there are shortage of umps, so they're going to have to do regular season games.
Yes.
But they should not. They should not be invited back to anywhere in Corpus ever again.
So for those teams up in College Station, Pray that you don't get this umpire crew because, boy, oh boy, was that an absolute mess. And that'll do it for our
very long segment, but we had to get that
had
in.
to get it out of there. It was something that happened over the weekend that needed to be talked about, and we talked about it. And that was our UIL baseball and softball segment. Congratulations to Cal Allen, the Lady Wildcats, for winning their first ever state championship, and congratulations to the London Pirates and Sinton Pirates for booking their tickets back to the state tournament for multiple years in a row. Coming up next, we'll talk about the Spurs and the Longhorns. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Sunday Sports Rush on News Talk KUIS 1440 AM and 98.7 FM.
Yeah, shout out to this bump is El Nino, the Latin metal band, and one of my friends, Marcos Leal, is their singer. They had a concert, and the Rock 927 presented at the House of Rock and had a really great time. And so shout out to those guys. Really cool.
Love bands that are local, have people that you know.
Well, they've been around forever. It's just that their singer now is a guy who's from Alice. Who was the lead singer of Shattered Sun, who I happen to, be friends with and whatnot. So really, really cool guy, Marcos Leal. So shout out to him and the rest of the El Nino camp.
Absolutely. Let's talk about some Longhorns, of course, as things are heating up towards the end of baseball season. That means that football season is right around the corner, and boy, oh boy, am I so happy to see that coming back. Football season is unlike anything else. Of course, we just talked about UIL baseball and softball. Long-winded rant. That's why this will have to be a bit of a shorter segment, but let's talk about some Longhorns. The kickoff times are set for 3 Texas games so far this fall. It's going to be an interesting season, of course. The main headline will be the QB battle between Quinn Ewers and the lineage of the Manning family and Arch Manning.
Expected to be Quinn Ewers. That Sark has been raving his name, during spring ball and whatnot, and so yeah, I mean, I'll be shocked if Arch Manning took the job at this point, because Quinn Ewers is going to be he should be a first round pick.
Should be
next season. Not going to be the top guy. It's going to be Caleb Williams. Sorry, James. I know you like Quinn Ewers, but
I think he would even agree that Caleb Williams is probably far and away the best quarterback to come out of here.
I forgot James was a USC fan.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I guess not so sorry. I guess, but yeah.
Another
Quinn Ewers
interesting note from college football is Big 12 could be seeing Colorado come and join them. Of course, a note with that is Deion Sanders being the coach. I think it's not going as spectacular as Colorado would have expected. What do you think would constitute as a successful season for Deion Sanders in his first year at Colorado?
I mean, Colorado was really bad last season. I think
they were
1 or 2 games won. It was a really bad
rough
year.
season.
Any improvement on the win-loss total, whether it be like 5 or 6 or 4 or 5 or 6 is a plus. So, something like that. Just to show improvement from how bad you were is a good sign. So,
some more news for Texas. The SEC is planning to stay at 8 conference games in 2024 when Texas and OU join. It'll be a 16-team league, 8 conference games, 1 guaranteed rival on your schedule. No more divisions, just 1 table of standings.
I can't wait for Alabama to schedule the worst 8 SEC teams in the bottom of the pack to
Kentucky. Let's go.
Alabama and Georgia are probably not going to schedule each other at all.
No, of course not.
It's major weak sauce.
I would expect Georgia to try and do it, but then Alabama to not want to do it. That's what I would expect.
Alabama was one of the teams that voted for 8 games, and it's just typical of Saban weak sauce. For how dominant Alabama's been since his tenure, he really wants to do the bare minimum to barely get by. So it's just another one of those Nick Saban things where it's just like, why people don't like the guy in the first place. Credits, he's one of the greatest coaches ever, but just absolute weak sauce by Bama. I expected, you would think a champion would want more of a challenge. Yeah. But I guess not. Saban is weak sauce. So, yeah. There we
Just
go.
one more note. Texas and Oklahoma will continue their Cotton Bowl game, and the Longhorns are expected to travel to College Station to play A&M in first year in the SEC. That'll do it for this segment. Coming up next, NFL headlines, so stay tuned for that. This is the Sunday Sports Rush. Welcome back to the Sunday Sports Rush on News Talk KUYS 1440 AM and 98.7 FM. We are halfway through the second and final hour of episode 119 of the Sunday Sports Rush. And thank you all for tuning in throughout the entire show. It's been an interesting one, full of some interesting notes. A lot of finals wrapping up with UIL baseball states, softball states. Got the Stanley Cup going on, NBA finals. Got a lot of championship stuff going on. And, of course, a lot of controversy within the world of high school baseball, if you've heard about it. But without further ado, let's talk about some NFL headlines. And once again, thank you all for tuning in. Of course, once again, we are in June, so that means the NFL season's only roughly 2 months away. It's getting there, man. We are close.
Yeah, man. Oh, man. One of my favorite segments we do is just to pick 'em.
Yes.
Gosh,
it's so good.
It's what sports is about.
Yes, it is,
why
man.
Talking about NFL games is why I wanted to be on the radio in the first place. Just talking about the
same
matchups.
for me.
Oh man,
it's always a
I
nice
see
break for me up in Denton as well, getting to go out and talk about it.
You know, with the OTAs and whatnot, I see a small light at the end of the tunnel.
Yep.
And that small light is the NFL season, man. We still got a long ways. We still got a bit of
Indeed,
ways to go.
Rosters are not finalized. Some more players will be signed. Some more players will be cut.
But late July is when we see training camp start.
Yep.
That's when it's going to hit.
And then we hear who's going to be on Hard Knocks and go from there. Unless they've completely stopped Hard Knocks, which, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if considering ratings probably weren't the highest ever, but it is what it is. It's still a quality show to watch. I love going back through the years and watching some of the older episodes.
But talking about just NFL games in general.
Love it.
Yummy, yum, 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 yum,
Yummy.
yum, yum.
Okay.
Let's talk some NFL headlines in an article from CBS Sports talking about 7 playoff teams from last year that could miss the postseason.
Okay.
Looking at the teams, starting off with the Miami Dolphins.
The only reason why I could see this happening is we don't know how healthy Tua is going to be. He apparently met with somebody that he met with some, like, I don't know, some MMA person or something like that to help him from, like, falling as hard as he does, like keep him from falling on his head and whatnot.
I mean, who's better to talk about keeping your brain protected than people who get their brains punched multiple times every day than in MMA people?
But
so,
but that division, man, why does the division get so good when
Here we
Tom
go
Brady
again.
is gone? I'm so like, why? Like, as
Here
soon
we go
as
again.
like Tom Brady, as soon as he left, Josh Allen became an elite quarterback. Now
Yep.
the Jets have Aaron Rodgers. Like, the best quarterback the Jets had when Tom Brady was there was Chad Pennington, and even Mark Sanders had a couple of good years. But like, well. The division's really good. The Patriots are not going to be like Belichick's coaching will get the Patriots at least 8 wins themselves, just on his coaching on the defense special teams.
And this
then you have the Jets with
entire
Aaron
division
Rodgers.
won't be able to make it into the playoffs. The Jets are going to be much improved, and so Jets Bills are likely going to be 2 playoff spots taken.
I mean,
and then you look
yeah.
across the rest of the AFC. You got the Ravens with Lamar back. Who knows how Deshaun Watson's going to progress in his second season with the Browns? So you got the Bengals, of course, who are likely shoo-ins unless they just get marred with injuries. It's a loaded AFC. It's going to be very tough for the Dolphins to lose their quarterback or lose some key pieces, but they've made some great offseason moves. Can't deny it. Getting Jalen Ramsey is about arguably the best move you can make defensively in the entire NFL. So unless they get marred with injuries, I think it's going to be tough for them to miss out, but it is a stacked AFC. If they were in the NFC, I think it's an automatic lock that they make the playoffs, but nonetheless, they are in the AFC. And another AFC team, we got a string of them because AFC might be cycling some playoff teams. It is the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I don't see it because the Texans just hired a new coach. Maybe the Texans can challenge them. The Colts are regressing. I think Jonathan Taylor's going to start regressing a bit as
A little
running
bit.
back.
They're in a rebuild. I think it'll take a few years, if ever, that they get back into contention. And the Titans are the Titans. Will Levis, as I expected, does not look great in training camp. I was not high on him at all in the slightest.
When you put mayonnaise in your coffee, that's just a sign there. Like,
I was snake bitten from not Sam Darnold.
Ryan Tannehill?
No, not Ryan Tannehill.
Well,
It was Zach Wilson.
Oh, Wilson.
I was very high on Zach Wilson coming out of college, and boy, oh boy, he made me look stupid. I'm snake bitten from that. I saw the hype from Will Levis. I never bought into it from the very beginning. All the videos I saw, didn't buy into it. I don't think they can challenge. I think this is the Jaguars' division to lose as of right now.
I've said that the Jaguars are going to win the division the next 2 or 3 seasons.
Another AFC team, of course, the Los Angeles Chargers. And I think this is a good one. I really do. The Denver Broncos, of course, were not much of a challenge under Nathaniel Hackett last year, but they do have Sean Payton now, who, as I've
An
seen,
actual head coach.
as I've seen year after year after year, as he was the coach of my New Orleans Saints. He's a phenomenal coach. Can't deny it. I am not thrilled with the way he left the team, but it is what it is. He's on the Broncos now, much improved. I think they will be much improved in general. Of course, the Chiefs. They're the Chiefs. They're going to make the playoffs.
Chiefs are still going to win that division, no matter what.
The Raiders are going to be down there. I would be shocked if the Raiders are not the 4 seed in that division.
I mean, Jimmy G's not even going to be healthy, and then that defense is still bad outside of Crosby. So, and then, the Raiders ain't going to be a factor. It's just that the Chargers, they retain Staley, and just not a big fan of him as a head coach.
With the simple fact that likely the Bills, Dolphins, or Jets are going to be wild card teams.
Well, I think the Bills are going to win that division.
I'm just saying whoever wins it, one of those or 2 of those teams are going to be wild card teams.
And then Bengals or Ravens, they're going to be the top 2 teams.
Exactly. So the Chargers are going to have to probably be better than 10-7.
And then the Steelers never have a losing season, so they're going to be around in the playoff hunt as well.
But the Chargers went 10-7. They're going to have to be better than that. In my opinion, I think 10-7 is likely the very bottom floor. So they're probably going to have to get a miracle tiebreaker once again if they want to get it.
And then Deshaun Watson's going to have a full offseason to train now and
not get massages.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I mean,
just get that massage gun from the trainer and just go with that. You don't need to go off. You just stay put. Okay, you got something good going there in Cleveland. Don't ruin it.
Yeah, and then what?
New York Giants are up next, which I mean is fair. It's a very weak NFC, but I mean, you've seen some new quarterbacks come in. Bryce Young could do some things with the Panthers. Of course, the Saints getting Derek Carr pretty much. I would be surprised if we don't make the playoffs this year. In all honesty, very surprised. But Cowboys, Eagles, pretty much guaranteed to be playoff teams.
I mean, they should.
So the Giants, once again, is going to be just a victim of their division. Likely going to be the 3 seed, maybe the 2 seed. But, I mean, looking around, the Vikings or the Lions are probably going to win that division. Saints, Panthers, Bucks, one of them is going to make it. And then you have the 49ers. It's tough.
Well, the Bucks are on that list of not making the playoffs, right?
Yes, they are.
Yeah,
of course.
I of course see that. And it wasn't even like, it's not just that Brady's gone. It's just that the Bucks weren't even a good team when they made the playoffs last season.
They weren't. They really weren't.
Like Brady, we finally saw the wall that Brady looked like he was a slumping quarterback, and they're still probably gonna have a top 10 defense in the league, but
I'd give top 15. I think top 10 might be a bit of a stretch.
Well, they finished 10 in points allowed, top 10 in points allowed last season.
I can't. I think there's a lot of defenses that are really good. I can't see the Bucks being top 10 again. Of course, it could happen, but I don't know.
I mean, the Saints should win the division.
Should. Keyword there is should. Probably the most shocking team on this list, arguably, would be the Minnesota Vikings.
I'm not high on the Minnesota Vikings.
I'm not either, but on this list, they are arguably the best team, most talented. So, I mean, well, Dolphins are the most talented, but that's because of this offseason mainly. But I can't really see the Vikings missing the playoffs. I really can't.
I mean, they still have. Dalvin Cook is probably going to be released,
which is shocking to me. It's just
the days of like I've been saying all offseason, the days of the workhorse running back are going to be gone
as soon as Derrick Henry's gone.
Yeah, we're not going to. we're not going to see,
Well, unless the people projecting the things that are being projected for Bijan Robinson with 300 carries in a season.
But like Miles Sanders, he had a 1,000-yard rushing season, but he didn't have a lot of carries. So
no, he didn't.
So we're not going to see a workhorse running back anymore. And Dalvin Cook is, the market is not going to be. So he's going to be gone. And then I don't know, man. Just the Vikings have they. I know they brought in Brian Flores to improve the defense, but
could I see them missing the playoffs?
Yes.
Yes. Do I think that they will? No.
Because I believe the Lions are going to win the division.
I would agree with that as well.
And so I'm high. I thought Jared Goff, for all, he had his inconsistencies as a St. Louis Ram, but I think last season finally put together the season, the type of quarterback that he was projected to be coming out of the draft as the number 1 overall pick. And I believe that, getting C.J. Gardner-Johnson in that back end is huge for them.
Underrated. So underrated.
The Lions are not going to get beat deep as badly as they were. Also, I mean, they can't get beat any worse.
And then, of course, drafting Brian Branch, too, is another big pickup.
So I feel like the Lions made key offseason moves. I just think, it is an NFC, which is the weaker conference.
Yes. Then the final team is also another NFC team in the Seattle Seahawks.
Is that Geno Smith year a fluke?
That's the main headline, I would argue.
Pete Carroll's a good head coach, man. But the Rams...
The only team that's a threat there is the 49ers in that division.
Well, I would say the Rams, too, just because they were, just last year, they were just completely unhealthy.
Well, they also lost Jalen Ramsey. The defense is...
Well, the defense, as long as Aaron Donald's healthy. See, Aaron Donald...
That's all they really got left.
But Aaron Donald, as long as he's healthy...
You're right, but that's all they got left.
But when you lose Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford and Aaron Donald for half your season, that's why they finished the way they did.
Yeah.
So you get those 3 players back healthy, they should be a playoff team.
I would agree. Some other NFL news points. Josh McDaniels says he has no anxiety over Raiders starting QB. Well,
so Jimmy G, we don't know how healthy he's going to be.
We know how healthy he is now, and it's not healthy at all. So.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So who are the other quarterbacks on the Raiders roster?
Raiders depth chart. Let's take a look at this Raiders depth chart that they got.
I know.
Brian Hoyer, Chase Garber, and Aiden O'Connell.
I thought they didn't they have another quarterback from the Patriots?
Brian Hoyer.
Was it Hoyer? I thought there was.
Jimmy Garoppolo's the other quarterback from the Patriots, but that's all they got here.
But there was the kid out of Auburn. What's his name?
Are you talking about Bo Nix?
No, not Bo Nix. Somebody else.
I don't know, but that's what is listed on their depth chart for ESPN.
He's probably not. I'm probably wrong, but
regardless, that QB room is horrid.
Yes.
So. I don't know what Josh McDaniels is looking at. I don't know if he's looking at the wrong roster, but I would be worried considering Jimmy Garoppolo is really the only quality piece that they have there. But nonetheless, it's Josh McDaniels. It's a mistake as the head coach. It's plain and simple. He should not be coaching. But the Raiders are the Raiders, and they're going to Raider. And that was their decision to keep him.
Yeah,
and they're going to live with it.
In 2021, they had something going there. The Gruden firing didn't really... with his stuff, they didn't really help, but they should have kept that interim coach that they had. I think it was Bisaccia, I believe.
Yes, Rich Bisaccia.
The Raiders just are going to, like you said, they're going to Raider.
And one final note before we go to break, and I believe him on this, it is Tom Brady saying that he is certain he is not playing again. I believe him this time.
The fact that he's made it definitive is going to... I still think there's 1% chance the Niners are going to... The Niners, man.
There's going to be a 1% chance
but the Niners have the team. The Niners have the perfect team around.
I gotcha. Believe me. I can see where you're coming from, but I believe him.
I know.
I do. I really do.
Until he's not in training camp in July with the team, I'm still going to leave... I'm not going to say hope because I don't like the dude, but...
The door's barely cracked open. Like that. It's barely cracked open.
Okay, well now Oh, it's unlocked.
Yes.
No, it's not cracked
They left
open.
the door unlocked. Let's just
The
put
door
it
is
that way.
unlocked. It's not open, but yeah. It's just that. I mean, all the Niners need is a quarterback.
Yeah. But that'll do it for our NFL headline segment. 7 playoff teams who could fall out of the playoff picture. In the Dolphins, the Jaguars, the Chargers, the Giants, the Buccaneers, the Minnesota Vikings, the Seattle Seahawks. So if you want to get your take, head on over to Sports Rush 1440 on Twitter. Also, Josh McDaniels, starting quarterback for the Raiders. He is not worried about it, and Tom Brady not playing again. That'll do it for our NFL headline segment. One more segment to go. It is a sports grab bag coming up after the break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Sunday Sports Rush. Just 10 more minutes before we wrap up episode 119 and put it into the books. Thank you all for listening on today's show here on News Talk KUIS 1440 AM and 98.7 FM. It's been a great show, and let's wrap it up with a sports grab bag. Starting off for all those Spurs fans out there, just a quick question to ponder on. Should Victor Wembanyama play in the Summer League? In my opinion, I'm going to say no.
No.
I think it's pretty cut and dry. With a guy like that, I don't think you risk it. We've seen him play rookies. We've seen him play the Summer League team where he dropped, I believe it was 37, or the G League team in Ignite. He dropped 37. I think that was a showcase enough. I mean, maybe the max I can see is one game. But in all honesty, if they're going to do it at all, it may be like one half, just to have him out there and just show fans what he's like in a jersey. Otherwise, you don't play him. You rarely ever see the top rookies play much or at all in Summer League. This is basically a showcase for some of the lower drafted rookies and some other guys who are young to try and come in, show what they got, try and get a roster spot. That's not what Wembanyama is here for.
Yeah.
He's not here to show off and try and get a roster spot. It's a dead given that he's getting a roster spot at this point. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think like Luka didn't. Luka never did really the Summer League.
No.
So
No,
yeah,
with these
it's
top
just-
guys, you don't see it.
no, don't see it.
So, Wembanyama, I think it's best for the Spurs to just have him sit, wait for the season to start, and go from there. To wind out the show, let's talk about some of the matchups in the UIL Baseball State Tournament. All the matchups have been set, so we do know who is going to be in it. And we'll start off with the lowest that we have around here classification in 3A. In the semifinals for 3A, of course, we have Corpus Christi London. We have Wall, and then Boyd versus Maypearl, which is the 9 a.m. slot. And, oof, I feel bad for some of those fans who have to travel because, man, going to Round Rock at 9 o'clock in the morning, depending on where you live, could be a brutal trek. Because I know specifically for us here, we are very glad that we don't have that slot because we would have likely had to go and stay the night before if we're going to cover that game. Because driving from Corpus to get to Round Rock to cover the game and get set up in time likely means leaving here at 3 o'clock in the morning, which I don't think anybody here is up for because that just doesn't sound good, boding well for how quality the broadcast would be. But that's for 3A. In 4A, of course, we have the Sinton Pirates after their absolute war with Bernie in the regional finals. They will be facing off against China Spring in the 4 o'clock slot at UFCU Dishfalk Field on Wednesday. That will be game 1 of the 4A state tournament. On the other side are two teams that I haven't really heard much about. Canyon Randall is one that I have heard of but have not seen much about. And then the team that Canyon Randall is facing is, and pardon me for the pronunciation here, I probably won't get this right. It is Texarkana Liberty Elau, which is a team that I can't say I've really heard of.
Yeah, I haven't heard of these teams either.
So it's nice to see that there's different teams.
Well, who's the other team that you said before?
Canyon Randall.
No, the other team before.
China Spring?
China. Okay, we've heard China Spring.
Yes, of course. China Springs is like a legacy program.
Didn't China Spring play Argyle in the semifinal of last year?
Sounds right to me.
Yeah, but they lost.
Yes.
So I'll double check on that, but yeah, because I believe the team. So Sinton beat Salina in the semifinal, and then Argyle in the final. Just dominated them.
Talking about Argyle, funny enough, they're in the 5A semifinals.
Oh, well, they moved up. Yeah.
Yes. They are 34-10-2. They will be facing off against Bernie Champion, of course. If you followed our coverage of high school baseball, Bernie Champion defeated the Ray Texans in the regional semifinals in a 3-game series, 2-1. They faced up against Leander Rouse in the regional finals, who is a team that is probably familiar to many of you. They are a team that's been around. They tend to make it pretty deep in the playoffs, and they're a team that is pesky, and many teams have probably faced off against. They lost game 1, but then battled back to win game 2 6-5. That was tied for the longest time. And then they won game 3 9-3. And so Bernie Champion is on their way to the state tournament. On the other side will be, is it Reedy or Reddy? The Frisco team.
I'm not sure, or maybe Reedy.
I'm going to go with Frisco, Reedy, and then Magnolia West. Magnolia West was one of the top-ranked teams coming into it, up there with Ray. Argyle, Frisco, Reedy, and Bernie Champion were not the highest of ranked teams ever.
Yeah, that Friendswood team that was highly ranked lost in the 3rd round to Barbers Hill, who...
We saw a lot of absolutely crazy upsets. There was teams all over the place that were just getting upset. It was... Like they say in the NBA, parity has been restored. There's a lot of teams that we really don't see very often. I mean, down in 2A, we're seeing, of course, like a Shiner and a Collinsville. Those are things that are usually seen within that sort of area.
Yeah.
But
so Shiner's football coach actually coaches their baseball team, too.
Same thing with SGA, funny enough.
Yeah.
The Santa Gertrudis Academy coach is the football coach, the baseball coach, and is on the basketball staff.
I'm wondering if Shiner does spring ball, because I highly doubt they do spring ball if the head football coach is coaching the baseball team.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, unless they have the assistant coaches take over and run it.
Yeah, it's possible, but yeah, so China Spring did play Argyle in the semifinal. They lost 2-1, so they've been there. So I'm not gonna say. I mean, Sinton dominated Argyle in the championship, but I'm not gonna take China Spring lightly just because they did make the state tournament last season.
And then 6A, the Titans of Texas. It's pretty much majority just blue bloods. Austin Westlake, of course. Cypress Woods is a team that you probably have seen around in football. Is a name that's known. Louisville Flower Mound is a team that's probably well known.
Flower Mound is they've been a champion before.
Yes.
So.
One team that, of course, has been making notes as a team that is sort of new is Pearland. The team out of Houston. They made it for the first time since I believe it was 2013.
Yeah, they used to be a football superpower last decade. But,
yep. So congrats to them. They'll be facing off against Westlake in the first round matchup, who are 40-4. So that's going to be a very tough game for them.
Yeah.
But that'll wrap up this episode of the Sunday Sports Rush. It has been a very interesting episode, full of some controversy, but a lot of great discussion. So, for Adin Ducker, I am Alex Weister. Thank you all for listening to another edition of the Sunday Sports Rush. That is all. Thank you for joining us here on the Sports Rush, 1440 AM, 98.7 FM, Corpus Christi, KEYS. Have a great rest of your day.